Okay, we are live now. Verifying my speaker settings are good. There we go. Okay. Oh, what we're looking at here is oh, well, the picture went out because I just was setting up everything so that when we would be ready for the live event, we'd be able to just pop it up real quick and be able to go with it. So what we're looking at here, well, happens to be a continuation. Now, yesterday you saw we had this ES on here, and we had made this trade, started coming down, added into more of it there, and so that was a nice little automation setup there. And then this one this morning was a really nice one. That one went from 58 to 60.75. So all fun with that. But what we wanted to go over, and I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. So if you can hear, just let me know. Verify with my mixer. I'm going to bring on, well, this happens to be SLV daily, and that was a pretty easy one. We also had, switch. I want to look at GLD. I haven't looked at GLD yet because I knew we had it long from a few days back and wanted to see it. So there's GLD, and we had nice signals with this, and I know a lot of people were reluctant to even get anywhere near it. But we jumped on it real hard. Let me add in my stream histogram. I'll make sure I'm talking. I feel like my voice is a bit hoarse, so maybe that's more of the issue. So, not quite overbought. Not bad. So, that's fine. And we just finally got the turnaround power mo within the setup. It was excellent shakeout reading. This is kind of what we were seeing from the Apple setup too, as price was matching the same lows and then popping back up. But what I wanted to go over was what you're looking at right here, and you see where it says pink dot, and it's got the target in that. Now originally, just for background purposes, the pink dot was literally created just to kind of try and show setups within, overbought, oversold conditions, and so really hadn't evaluated it for even setting up alerts and everything, but that's become a popular thing to do, and since we're utilizing them, I needed to make some changes to the program. So I want to show you what we've done to the pink dot. Now if you've got the indicators, most people won't even have this because I literally just completed the final details of this just a little bit ago, so they'll be going out a little bit later today and you'll be able to play with it. And what's going to happen is you're going to see this almost on all of the dots that exist, because what's going to happen is I have strategies created for each of these individual dots, and what I'm going to be giving you will be additional inputs, and as I refine the strategies, it will allow you to match your strategy to the dot. So when the dot comes up, you'll know it's an actual buy, and you'll have the actual percentages to go from. So pretty self-explanatory, I think, but let's go over them one by one. Pink dot on and off. True means that you will see a pink dot. So yes, we see a pink dot. That's pretty straightforward. Depth target, that's your ATR multiple. So your standard ATR, I don't know why it says 16 there, it should say 14 is the standard. So I'll make that adjustment on it real quick. And stop, 2 times ATR. The reason we have these as flexible situations is because maybe you want to change them. Maybe you want to work out a strategy that goes a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. That'll be the preference. Now, in this case, we have some interesting ones here with the gray dot. Because the gray dot we use primarily, I mean, it's in conjunction with the shorting aspect of a red dot, particularly if you have a red dot signal and then you get a gray dot short, becomes attractive. So here you can see a gray dot, and if I close off that part, you'll see that the gray dot now has a gray dot target. This is an extended target. The actual gray dot target is literally just a retrace of the low, and then it becomes an extended situation when you can get a break below that. So that's usually where I then will set a stop after you've had a bar, particularly if you've already reached your low, because you can get your reversal, and that's usually where I start looking for signals. But if it's coming after a red dot, then definitely it looks like a usually you'll get a red dot. It'll continue a little bit from your shakeout reading, or your power momentum will continue to rise. Then you get the gray dot, and that's sort of like the clean, oh, now I can hit it and get extra value for that short signal. That becomes a very nice one to do. But let's take a look at these again one more time. We'll go back to the format, and we're in the input section. In general, it's not going to give you anything unless you have more than one chart added to a screen, which you can do. You can have multiple charts. You don't have to have just one. It can be gold overlaid with the S&P. You can have anything you want. There's a variety of different. You can put the opposite ETFs. I've done that many times, where you'll put the opposite ETF in there, and you can look for arbitrage situations when you do that kind of setup. But we're looking at the inputs for now. So let's go through. Gray dot on and off. You can turn off the white target. So in this case, I'm just going to do that. Click false, and then I have to can't show you the OK buttons at the bottom, but alright, so there, gray dot no longer shows the white dot target. Why is that relevant? Because you're also going to be able to put in the actual value, and I'll have that as an on-off down the road, just filling in each of the different components to it, because some people don't want all the clutter. So it just gives you the flexibility there. So if I put that back to true, I got to spell true correctly in order for that to work. There we go. Okay. And then now you see these other ones, yellow on and off, and some people are thinking, what is yellow? Blue, and there's actually a couple additional colors in there. I think I can show them, and oh, I think I close that before saying yes to it. Gotta type in true. Still have to quit leaving the F there. Doesn't matter if it's capital or not. And I click OK, and so there the dot comes back. And so if we scroll back, maybe we'll find a yellow. Oh, here's some yellows. Okay, same situation. Yellow dot goes back to the same format. I can turn it off. And they disappear, just like that. So this becomes the advantage to having the input capability with a variety of the different indicators. Nobody has these yet. I haven't sent them out, so they will be going out probably after this, so that you'll be able to add them in. And the nice thing about it is it's not going to affect any settings that you already have. It's just going to be an augmentation, and once you have the strategies, it will be nice because it will be able to create a variety of different setups depending on different securities. Each security is going to have slightly different adjustments to them, and so what you'll be able to do is maybe when doing a strategy review, we'll be able to go through, and if we're looking at a strategy setup like this one right here, you go through and say, okay, well, it's not associated with an orange dot, but it may come after an orange dot under certain very specific criteria. And at that particular point, you would then want to match your dot to what you've already worked out as far as an effective strategy. Because here's the thing, strategies don't give you alerts. You can't get an alert from a strategy. It has to come from an indicator. So in this particular case, a showMe or something that has indicator capabilities. And for that, if we go back to the actual showMe, let's look at the age. No, here you go. This is a blue dot right there that showed up. Now that has a light blue from a target standpoint. To change that to a white. And if we wanted to create an alert for this, let me just slide it over so you can see it a little bit easier. You can literally do it from right here, and you just click alert. I have to go even further over, my goodness. Alright, so if I do alert, you can see where it says disable alert. I can alert the bar once, and we kind of went over this. I think it's easier to do it from the format category. Click alert, select it. You can pick what email you want, whether you want it to be voice, blah, 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 blah. I mean, any of those. It'll pop up in a window, variety of different options with that. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you the flexibility to either have the dot, not have a dot, have the indication. Once I add in the text, it's a lot more work in doing that, and I think you've started to see it on some of the dailies. Yeah, like right here, I'm working on creating it so you can have the text, and even with these, you'll be able to turn the text on or off, so that it's subject to your preference, whether or not there's a lot of writing or not, and or whether or not it's going to be a dot. And I'll even give you that opportunity to exchange the dot for the actual amount. And it was interesting. I mean, we were looking at this one from Apple, where we're right in the day has started here, and these dots in particular, normally the way the dots are set up is they won't show up until the end of a bar. But a couple of them, when it's daily, I've allowed to actually show me ahead of time, sort of like the ability to preposition, if you will, based on setups that are unlikely to change unless there's a standard deviation that's beyond normal. Typically something that's in the 2.5 category of a standard deviation. If that's beyond what you know what I'm talking about, then don't worry about it. It's not going to affect anything with related to what's going on. Again, each of the dots, meaning is relative because it's just a visual representation of the fractal subsets being derived at a particular point, and it's giving us an idea that there's been a collection of buyers within a setup, and or in short situations, it's a collection that we've now recognized that things are going to turn and go the other direction from a short standpoint. That's what the gray dot is giving you in those cases, and the long ones. Now, you're only going to find like this blue dot setup, and the reason I haven't put them in a lot is because these are only going to show up in green trend. And the reality is, once you turn to green trend, you can buy green trend regardless of having to wait for an additional signal. Like I point out, though, that going from red trend to green trend, usually your first two bars, you kind of get a little bit of a retrace, gives you an opportunity to get into those setups, and then it goes from there. But these typically will come in, as you can see, in green moves, and they're going to be later than catfishes. They're going to be later than orange dots. So when I look at the pink dot, yes, it was nice to have, but it was always a little later than some of the more aggressive setups that I had been uncovering. So you can see there's an evolution. I mean, whether it's from the MBI and the GAM, moving back down and getting into this little more microscopic level in red trend, really trying to find what is the bottom and what is close to a bottom. Because a lot of these guys don't really care about what you perceive as an actual bottom. They're going to be buying up and down a column. Like when we look at Apple and we see right here within, it's not a coincidence that, if I put my marker on here, that these dots are all showing up at the same level. It has nothing to do with the price level. It just happens to represent that they're attracted to this point. For whatever reason, they like Apple at this particular level. I don't know why. That's the one they've picked. It's just what it is. And it's odd that it's the halibut signal coming in. Couldn't tell you why that is, because typically the halibut doesn't come in until you're a little bit higher up in the column of price. So it just is representing these guys have decided, for whatever fundamental reasons, I don't know. You can go through and try and figure it out. That's not really going to help anything. This is an attractive spot for them to be acquiring. Do they care if price is going to move a little bit more to the south side before it pops? No, because they did right here, waited even a few days before, and then you saw this massive move that seemed like all of a sudden. And it's not so all of a sudden when it takes place. And let's go from the nexus, though, of actually putting in one of these. Oh, wait, let me read this real quick. Well, I only have a certain number of colors that I can choose from, if that's what you're really getting towards. Whether they're the same color or not makes a difference, because the same color is only going to show up under the very specific criteria. So from that standpoint, the color is relevant from the standpoint of, okay, these are the same groupers. Whereas, like, your catfish, those blue, cyan ones that pop in, they're specific. So from that standpoint, that's the only correlation you can draw to them. I couldn't identify who they are. I just can show you the subset math and that they come in. Different dot colors mean, well, yeah, they do mean different things. It's completely different patterns that are being represented from the algorithms that are shown. And, again, this is why we tend to look for groupings of the dots, because it shows that you have more than one group all wanting to go the same direction, as opposed to just random, noise. Let's run through a couple of these. Well, this happened to be Caterpillar Daily. We're showing just, and again, overbought setups, but then we're seeing all these buy setups. I mean, that's a significant number of buy setups within a 78-minute chart where people might think that it's about to break down. No, the same colors are always going to mean the same thing. They always represent the same group of people that have been attracted to a setup and are looking for an upside target to it. The more they do, can you make a correlation to a higher move? Yeah, at times you can, because as they build, particularly on a daily, if I'm getting a series of catfish, extreme fractals, orange dots, all in the same grouping, then I'll tend to want to flip out my ABM trend model and say, okay, let's follow this for a little bit. Let's squeeze this down. Because as you can see, I mean, clearly got into overbought, but even within the overbought, as it retraced the positive extremes, more buy signals still coming in. And right here with the extreme expanded histogram, you can see that orange way over the top, nowhere near looking for a sell signal yet from that standpoint. So that's kind of impressive from a Caterpillar stance, but we're seeing that generally throughout the market, except for certain stocks. There was the Gold Daily. And Gold Daily looks like it's hit its targets almost. Let me mark these with a line so that you can visually see the exact number. Alright, so that target was 162.73. 162.56, not quite there yet. So it's got a little more to go. Off the early signals it hit. Now you can see that SLV was a little behind what was happening in gold. Gold gave the earliest signals first, and then SLV was like a day behind. So that's why I always look at more than one of them, just to get you a general idea where things are headed. Whip through some more dailies. If you have preference on anything else you wanted to look at other than those, but what I wanted to go through here was, if I didn't have a pink dot showMe, and let's see if it's here. So I'm just going to go over here, and what I can do is I'm just literally going to remove it. Alright, so it's gone. Doesn't exist. So in this particular case, if I want to put it back in, get rid of all this extra text, and we'll just disable these so we just get a chart of price. Good job, Michael. I mean, let's see, it didn't take much to make that GLD call, or even the SLV call. There were some people who were just confused by it because none of their indicators were giving them a buy signal there. And that's okay. I don't mind. Alright, so if we want to do this, we're going to go down and we're going to insert an analysis technique. In this case, it's going to be a showMe, and we're going to go to pink dot, and we'll select OK down at the bottom. And then boom, it immediately pops up into our values. So at this point I could decide, do I want to turn any of these off, on, whatever. We'll just leave them as they are. But the key then is moving into your styles. Want to change anything, it automatically detects. You don't have to do any of this stuff. These colors have already been preset. You couldn't alter them if you wanted to. And boom, that becomes there. Now what you're going to start to see, like you see on the strategies, will be, okay, next it'll be pink dot, and then you'll have a series of about 9 different variables that you would then be able to optimize from a strategy standpoint. And then once the strategy is optimized to the best return, you'll be able to go back through on your indicator and punch in those same values, and your indicator will pop up a dot at the same time that the strategy does. And that will be the advantage of that. So you can see that pink dot came right there back. So it turned it right on and immediately went onto the chart. There was no need to try and adjust the location, which is a little different than, like, for instance, if I go back here and I turn on my expanded or extreme histogram. So it's popped over price. Well, if I didn't want it on price, I could go to my scaling and then pick, let's say, just subgraph 11, just for the fun of it. And so boom, it moves it down here, and then I can click there and the prices would show up. But if I ever just want to move it back, I can grab it and slide it back up to price. But look what happens. Okay, it doesn't scale correctly. It's going to give its own readings because these readings are negatives and price are positive. You couldn't read that chart to save your life. So we have to format it, and we don't want it same as underlying. It's got to be no axis. And once we do the no axis, price then can be there, and the extreme histogram is floating behind it, theoretically behind price, having no real relation to price, just its zero line and being above and below, and it's just kind of centered it. But it was good from a visual standpoint because it could let you visually see how to interpret, know when price is overbought versus oversold, that kind of setup. Google Daily looking for some down move there. That's going to be important, particularly going into next week. For dot alerts, you're going to have to be more cautious on 78-minute signals from Google. SB, let's go ahead and put up Starbucks. I haven't seen Starbucks in a long time. Why not? Plus, also, we were talking about moving Visa off the dot alerts and putting on AIG or Checkpoint, CHK. Alright, so here we go. Starbucks from a daily standpoint. You can see gray dot short. Hit it yesterday, and it's in the process of making a halibut buy signal. So it's going to give an upside target, 55.61. Still might see a little bit more downside before that happens, but this is a nice setup right here from a long side. That might surprise some people. Kind of shocks me there, but hey, it's okay. It is what it is. But not enough information there from my standpoint. And someone was asking me about this. Which indicator should I rely on more? Well, this is a total situation. You really just can't ignore one over another and expect to be, effective in doing this on a regular basis. Now, for some reason, they're both showing in the same field, so we just go and change our graph. There we go. I like to have my power mode, though, at the bottom. And let's add in our expanded ratio histogram, because I want to see, okay, is this positive? Do I have my orange above? Am I looking good from there? And then lastly, I have to see if I have the up-down power on these charts, because typically I put these charts up to show people, and the reality was couldn't get into the specifics of every indicator. It was too much, and this was a problem that I was talking with StockTwits about, because they were like, hey, people need it a little bit simpler. And it's like, well, unfortunately, in the real world, life is not as simple as everybody wants it to be, but that's neither here nor there. 16. So in this particular case, we're formatting up and down continuous power. I want to put it at the very bottom. In style, it has to be a histogram, and I want it to be a little thicker. And I'll make the bottom one even the thickest, and it just gives you a nice visual so you can see it, and then you can just check it right there, and it shows up in the corner. But again, we're looking at that ratio relationship right here, and you can see shorts on the strong side, but you did not get a move to the negative side for bull. So shorts look like they may get squeezed here on Starbucks without even realizing it. How do you move two horizontal lines? Well, okay, when you're formatting power momentum, let me just disable some of these again, and we'll go to that one. That's a good question. Alright, so if I go to the format on this, here's what you're going to find. You're going to find up, down, and then this V and VX. If I flip these around and turn these two into the histogram and these two into the line, watch what happens. It flips around like that. So how they're configured is important, and this is why I go over that layout when we're in the setup for the videos. Um, these are lines, up and down are lines, and then when we get to VV, it's a histogram, and I like to have them a little bit thicker. It's just a preference. You don't have to. You can have them thin, make any difference. It's just the relationship that you're looking at. I find it visually easier to see when they're a little bit thicker like this. The relationship between the yellow and the blue. Um, will I even offer the opportunity to eliminate these? Yeah, but I don't, because we haven't talked about it much. Typically, when I get this kind of a diamond crossover is what I really refer to it as. Um, I looked for 5 bars for price to be higher, and or if it was just the opposite of yellow or above, I would look for price being lower 5 bars later. So it becomes an interesting crossroads kind of section. Gosh, I could get into the nuances, but I'd be doing an hour video on just that. But again, I could do the same thing with power, up, down, power. And we had a good discussion about this the other day, looking at these relationships and understanding that, bulls getting over exuberant in some of these situations where you don't have a negative move on the bull side of it. You still have bulls adding and get shorts added heavy. It's a nightmare for them, and they get squeezed. And this is why some people wonder, well, how would you know? Well, that's how. And then we look for other situations where, like this, you've got a huge reversal coming right here. And then I was starting to talk about, what you see is not always what is there, that there's more to what is than you're able to view via your setups. And let me just change the fill color here, and this is going to give you a little bit more of an idea of what I'm talking about. Yeah, there's more going on to these indicators than you're even seeing. Okay, so you can't see this because it's just black, but these are some of the additional relationships that exist outside of what I'm able to visually show. And so it's kind of an interesting interpretation. Like the expanded ratio histogram, if I say that without muttering it, the expanded ratio histogram, let me put it up. Get ahead of myself, because I get excited about the math on these things, which is crazy, but I do. Okay, you're only looking at 3 lines here with these cross lines. Okay, well, there's actually another 4 more lines that you're not going to see. Okay, so what happens is these begin to, if you look at it, if you think of braiding a string, having 5, 6 different strings together and intertwining them, that's what these indicators are. Unfortunately, we can only show them in this 2-dimensional field, and in order to understand, the complexity of those dimensions, we'd have to have a 3D model. And there's no way to do that. So what I've done is broken them out into various components so that we can then combine them together as separate visuals to get an overall concept. I know, she still has that cough. How many weeks later? Did that make sense? When it gets quiet on the little chat line there, I wonder, did I lose everybody on that concept? It's the same thing here in the power momentum. There's more lines than just what I'm showing there, and I try to keep it somewhat within a realm that's comprehensible. Let me go ahead and flip over to Baidu while I'm making no sense to anyone. At least you'll be able to see a new chart, even if I'm not making any sense, right? Alright, so, and I posted this one the other day. We talked about it. We had our buy signals back over here on Baidu. And again, I don't know, well, yeah, I do, because I look at regular technical analysis stuff, so I know that the setups aren't there for most people. They're not seeing them, that they're, getting their MACD cells and various things, but that's okay. That's why I'm here showing you these things. All right. Well, thank you for telling me that you're still with me. At least I got somebody who's not afraid to say that. Yeah, anybody completely not know what I'm talking about and want me to move on to something that's more practical for them, like what are the targets? So in this particular case, I have to color that the right color. So for Baidu, we had 108.80, and yeah, we blew past that. So that was a piece of cake. No issues with that one. And again, there was the gray dot. There was the retrace. You end up getting a green dot buy signal. And that was a hawk. That was not a halibut. You'll notice the difference because this is green and not dark green. Let me find dark green. There's dark green right there. See, halibut. So dark green, not the same as light green, which is not the same as yellow or anything else. Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. Um, yeah, no, it's good. And look at this positive extreme. Okay, this tells you more about what's going on in this Baidu setup. Like that positive extreme tells us what? I'll wait for someone to type it in there because I know that people are going to have the answer to this one. And even though there's a slight tape delay, it'll take you a second to put it on there, and I'll continue because you're looking at this expanded ratio histogram, positive extreme, and look at that huge move in the up-down power. So everything spiking, but with this positive extreme, my expectation is that this low is going to get retraced. I'm at plus 23. Now, does that mean it's going to get retraced tomorrow? Because this is what people say to me. We said it was going to retrace. Well, yeah. Not yet. Okay. We're building. If I put my shakeout on here, imagine we got our higher shakeout. Let's put the shakeout indicator in here. Okay, so let's do one at a time. Alright, so we rolled over, shakeout came back here, and then boom. Yeah, it's overbought, but it's overbought within the proper configurations. Now, the fact that the yellow is below here, that's a concern going forward, certainly, meaning that it's a little bit too much. What you would need to see is yellow move back up above and have the orange stay below. Otherwise, yeah, you're likely to retrace it a little bit quicker than some people might think. Yeah, and exactly, you called it correctly right there. Because with the yellow below, right, just as I was speaking about it, same concept, but not right away because now we've just lowered our shakeout. Now we've moved back up, and the shakeout's convergent. I mean, the fact that it's making higher highs and we're getting a higher shakeout. The last one was 12.6 there, and we are currently reading 13.28. So that's good. So people will automatically just start shorting this right now. And no, that's too soon. You can't do that. Okay, fine, it might retrace a little bit, it might do it early, but you want to be waiting for, a cleaner setup. To just arbitrarily jump in there and short for no reason is, you're going to get caught doing that. Now, if we get another higher close on a much lower positive extreme, and then we start to see yellow improvement on the up-down power, definitely. But this was the same situation we looked at the market. For those of you who watched last night's video report, you'll know what I'm talking about. We reached this extreme low from a daily standpoint on the ES where, gosh, this one was in, 15 range, but we were looking at the market being like an 8. Well, and I was telling about how the flash crashed, we were only at a 4. So I was going to run the scenario, but we were, the potential for a nice move to the upside was definitely there because this whole pendulum had swung to the downside. And we talk about waves and stuff. Let me shrink the time scale here. And you can begin to see that there are versions of that, but it's not as clean as like an Elliott wave wants to make it out because there are violent reactions in the market. The market is not about smooth setups because these guys are looking for liquidity events to go ahead and accumulate, and then they dry up supply so they can force dramatic overreactions. Overreactions from shorts, overreactions from those who feel like they've missed a move, and this is why you get that with Apple a lot too. We could see that we had the dip below the red line, this massive jump up. There were a bunch of people that wanted to pop into that thing, and then all of a sudden it starts selling, but it had reached our 78-minute target. Let's go and look at that. So right here, we ended up with this orange dot. Clearly, you want a discount within that. It was pretty tiny range though, so trailing it lower, not a big deal with that particular setup. You get the big gap; it hits the target, and then people are wondering, well, why did it sell off at the open? And this is the question that I'll give for people. Well, from my standpoint, these guys reached their target and they sold at their target, and then price declined. Well, then we get another signal right here, but look at this range. All right, that's 11 bucks. You've got to be looking for at least your $3 discount. Combine that with the fact that, unfortunately, without the dot alerts, you're not going to get this signal, which told me, okay, yeah, I'm still going to be looking for a little bit lower. But then that kind of flipped here on the next bar, and you can see that the orange stayed above. In this case, now what I need is the orange to bypass this, and then you know that you have a clear um, move to the upside. Yeah, on the one halibut, I have to figure out why I'm not getting my up set up there, and I've got that next on my list to do. In fact, I got my programs going right through here, and there's the halibut. In fact, it just shows you I was looking for. So this setup has the particular target already done, and this shows you also within the hawk. You don't even have these setups available for you, where you have the series buy, which is a whole other set of dot fractals. So within the dot fractal world, even with as much as you're seeing, you're only seeing a tiny portion of what is actually out there. But I look for the strongest confluences. Yeah, I can identify quite a few different patterns. It doesn't mean all of them are successful or that all the algorithms work. It varies. And that, unfortunately, is the real world. The real world is not this pristine, situation where it's all buyers and everyone just does it. There are clearly sellers within these setups. Alright. What other ones did people have on there while I'm playing through? Let me go back up here and look at some of them. Oh, we did Starbucks, Apple. Yeah, well, we're going through Apple here a little bit, but we have a correction to make, so let's make the correction. And why don't we look at a 10-minute of it too? Always good to look at the smaller time frames and then work your way up. Because again, we started with the daily. We could see there's still some expressed weakness because we had a lower extreme today. So we knew that there was a problem from that standpoint because we were expecting the extreme to continue to move higher within the range that it was going. And while that does that, we can go ahead and go back to that Apple daily real quick. So for instance, right here, we saw this move up where they bought into that setup, and then to have the close down lower with the dip below. Now, I find this setup extraordinarily attractive because it's the same as this one, so the expectation should be higher. The problem we had with Apple the other day has been this power momentum being weak. Well, look at what's happening today. Bulls are overwhelming the shorts in this particular setup. So people say to me, how is this any different than the day before? And all I have to do is say to you, well, look at what we're seeing. You're not going to get this on any other indicator. You're not going to see that change in any other indicator. You're not going to notice that the shakeout here is right at the precipice of the institutional, love fest level, whereas before it was, beyond ugly. And what they did here was they tested the resistance to see how much supply they would find up at the top side. They just let price kind of fall back down, and they started gobbling up again. All right, so they bought it here, sucked up some supply, popped price. They checked how much resistance was above them, and they said, okay, that's manageable. Let it fall back down. Now, they're letting it fall back down, but it's clearly not the active selling that people think is existing. And so the shorts that are jumping into that setup, they're going to have a problem. Now, if we look at our up-down power, which would be the next one that I want to look at. Let me go over here. This is an easy way to add and remove analysis techniques if you're using the TradeStation. You just go to Enable your analysis techniques, and you just click your up-down power, and it pops back on. And so if I want to get rid of some of these extras, okay, because I've got too much on here, I can just disable it. That's too hard to see it overpriced. Disable. We'll get rid of the power mode. We'll disable it. Alright, so what are we looking at for my up-down power? Okay, right here. Once this ratio is over 70%, you would want to short that setup. Right there. Look at it. And, alright, let me change the fill color. Yeah, and you can see my hidden lines. Why not? We're grown-ups here. I can start showing you that there's more to the setup than, I can visually show. What is the difference between the power momentum and the up-down power? Oh gosh, let me think of a good analogy that would make sense. Um, I tried to go through this the other day when, I was saying if you imagined yourself in a room that was dark and you're sitting in a chair and you don't know where the walls of this particular space are, and you see lights flashing at different colors in different spots of the room. I ask you to identify where they are, when they happened, and then in the order that they happen, and then let me know when it repeats. All right, well, this is the relationship you find between the up-down power and then the power momentum. All right, so one is reviewing a location, the other is reviewing the instances, and then we're looking at the adaptation of those two from a relationship as a ratio. I know that it sounds weird even when I say it, but that's pretty much what we're doing. Um, they're going to react to at different speeds, so that also has an impact. The length of time that they're looking at. Well, it's a good question. Why wouldn't people buy at this particular point on Apple? Well, it depends on your time horizon too. Not everybody is looking to hold on to it. All right, let me go through how we would calculate what that particular setup is, and I'm going to need to get rid of my shakeout here, and we're going to need to expand this a little bit higher. All right, what we're looking at is the relationship between the two setups, and I'm referring them to you as bulls and bears just because that's something everybody knows. All right, so when we look at the actual readings, it becomes significant. All right, so in this particular case, when we're above 0, all right, what you're going to do is you're going to take 11, the 11.65. I just do it at 11.65. You don't need the decimal place. And you're going to divide it into the 1688. And what you're going to get is 69%. All right there at the peak. Okay, after we hit my target, I'm a seller anyway after hitting that target because this is what we had from a daily standpoint for our target anyway, right there. All right, the up target was 548.83. Okay, in this particular bifractal setup. If we did the math on the halibut over here, you would be right at about the same spot and a little bit higher. So how is it you can be at the exact same spot and a little bit higher? Because the ATR changes. The amount of range that they expect the stock to move will adjust. All right, so then we look at the next day. All right, you wanted to know whether or not it was going to continue. Look at the next day. All right, we'll do the math together again. So 951 divided by 1124, and what do we get? 84%. So on this day, 84%. Gee, am I going to be holding on to a long call when I know that I've got here 70% and then 84%? No. And if I haven't bought my put, then you might as well just slap me and just put me in my grave, because what's the point? But this is an interesting relationship that a lot of people aren't going to see, and they're not going to notice it when they're looking at their regular chart. And that's okay, because they're not going to have those numbers. And while that's unfortunate for them, I mean, it is what it is. Now, if I put this in conjunction with the power momentum, which let's do that, because it's about teaching, so let's get together and we can start to respect the dynamic of the market, because then you begin to see, okay, this can happen very fast. One day we have a buy signal right here. When we flip to the exact opposite configuration, all right, you'll notice something here that's an enormous anomaly, that the bulls exceed the bears in the bear level. Okay, how's that happen? All right, let me get rid of my ellipse. All right, look at this. This is what we're talking about when it comes to these bifractal setups here. These guys were sucking up huge volume, every share they could possibly get their hands on in this particular case when people were still short at that particular setup. And then we look at our power mo, and we reach this extraordinarily low level on the way. There was nowhere else to go from a down point, and then the next day, right here, we end up with a positive power momentum reading on a down day. So some people say to me, well, do I need to have it a down day or an up day when the power momentum shows that shift? No. There's no relation to price. It's the hardest concept I'll ever teach anyone, is that price is irrelevant to what's going on with what these guys are up to and what they're doing. They're not that concerned about price. What they're doing is about accumulating their setup, and then they're going to move it where they want it. And then the price becomes relevant to them because they have an average weighted price. Over this period of time, they've acquired X number of shares. I don't know how many it's going to come out to because it varies. What I do know is the algorithm does it in a very specific order, and that's how we see it. Okay, so that's where the representation comes. Now, all right, unfortunately, you get this horrible short setup, and then it continues because the power momentum is letting you know, hey, unfortunately, every attempt at buying within this setup is getting beaten down, and boom. So today becomes the first day where that balance has shifted. Is that significant going into a Friday? You think? You think? All right, well, here's what we look at the other day, too. We talked about this setup, all right? Let's do the math again. I know, back to the math. You guys thought you finished school and you'd be done with math? No, and I'm bringing you back into that nightmare. All right, I'm sorry. Apologize in advance. All right, so let's take 920 and divide it by 1192. And what do we get? I'm not going to give that answer. I'm going to wait for someone. I'm going to see if anyone else is out there actually doing the math with me. Those are the numbers. You give me the answer, and then we'll continue. Because that answer tells you what you need to know. And unfortunately, I got like this tape delay, so by the time you put it in there, it's going to be another 8 or 10 seconds before I'm able to say, yes, you finally got it. So I'll probably be moving on to the next setup within there. Alright, so then I'm going to add in, that's right, thank you, we got 77.82, close enough. The point being is, well over, I had 77% from that. If I bring that down a little bit, you can see it. So, 920 divided by the 1192, I got 0.7718. So well over the 70%. So that meant that, shorts potentially are in trouble here, and they don't know it. So, they don't know it. Now, they may be thinking that they can overwhelm the situation. It's possible if we ended up with a lower move and we went positive here with my bull power, that would be negative, but we don't have that. And the fact that because that can signal an overbought. That's a good one to point out. Like what happened here, going from this negative all the way to this extreme, that it presents an overbought when it happens like that. What I want is a gradual, slow incline of my bull setup before it goes positive, and I want to go positive with my bull setup at the same time as I'm doing with my bear moving positive as well. So those are important distinctions to make. But the point being there is that, this is a great short squeeze potential within this setup. And I think it's attractive. It's difficult when it comes at a time where the market is, in my mind, neither bullish nor bearish, sort of in a neutral. It's bullish in the sense that we still have green trend. So I have to say that. So there's no question about that. We had our positive extremes that we got the retraces that I expected already. All right, so fine. From that standpoint, and we've been easing overall market overbought. And I got to put that up because now people are going to say to me, how can you say that we've eased overbought? All my readings are telling me that we're still overbought. All right, this is how I can show it to you in a visual format. All right. Shorts have stayed pretty heavily into this setup, but they can't get over 50% from a market standpoint. So while they keep applying into what they think is extreme overbought, they're not getting anywhere. All right, well, that puts intense pressure on them for a move to the upside. So it's really difficult from a short standpoint because they don't understand why the market should go up. Well, at this point, we got overbought. I was expecting a little bit of the low retracement because from our cash index, we had positive extremes. We didn't have it from the futures. So futures in this sense, okay, overbought right here at -9, right on the threshold. All right, but the fact that we declined from there, okay, overbought was over last week. And I don't know, maybe some of you didn't know it. But it was over. Back over here, I was greedy. I wanted a little bit more of a reduction before I was going to have members jump into futures trades. We still have our long SSO, though we sold a call right into this week, and I'm fine with that because we got enough premium on it that it was good for a 10-point move to the upside. So either way, it was a win-win for us if we had a little bit more of a retrace, or if we held pretty much flat like I kind of expected that we would. So, um, all in all, kind of interesting. So, while some people are still thinking this market's overbought, this market is not overbought. Okay? Get that out of your thinking right now. That's not the case. We were. It eased off within a couple of days. And look at the power Momo showing that, bears were strong within the setup. And that's the best they could do. And now you can see the ratio has changed. Now watch this when you look at the numbers. Alright, let me get rid of my extreme histogram here and we'll look at the numbers on the power mode because this becomes interesting in order to see it. Because when you have these indicators, in front of you, you begin to see these kind of setups. I mean, look right back here. Huge differential between the two. Alright, looking at the last two numbers is what we're looking at. So you had 949, which is the short side, the yellow, and then you have the 843. Alright, well, so that's represent a little over 1. Alright, we move into the next day and look at the relationship now. Alright, you've gone from 1 to 0.25. Alright, and then explosion. Okay, right at the same point you reached oversold with the dip below the red line. Alright, so that's what you ended up with there. Here, we had this similar situation, and a couple of days ago from the market, I was like, oh, that ratio improved. We just kind of held tough. We didn't do anything. But then the other day, it completely collapsed. I was like, what the heck? But that reading is so low. Gosh, we have to go back. Well, here was the last time we saw a reading that low, 8.6. All right, so look at that relationship and what happened from there. Well, if I bring price back to a practical level, you can see. All right, it became a low point and at a point where the market was oversold. And you say oversold, it didn't move anywhere. Price didn't go anywhere. Price doesn't have to move to change overbought and oversold. I know. Again, this becomes very hard for people to get. Price just doesn't matter as much as people want to make it matter. And I know it sounds bizarre, but it's true. I mean, and the indicators show it. That's what's the interesting part about it. I didn't believe it at first either until the data was like right there. It's like, okay, I've traded across for 7 days, and yet I've had lower extreme readings. So the readings are telling me that this overbought, theoretical overbought, and this is where, I mean, I get these emails from these guru guys who are like, don't be getting involved in anything with this, the market's about to collapse, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, I wasn't seeing any of that in any of our data. We kept seeing shorts getting right around 55 to 60 something percent, and they couldn't hold on to it. And then, smarter ones realize that, and they sort of get out of the situation. In this particular case, you can kind of see that you had the best ratio right here. It was 30 to 11. So that was the low point right there. And that becomes a problem, see, for bulls. Because in a declining mode, when you don't have enough shorts, you don't have anything to move the market higher. Alright, so you need shorts. And this is what always cracks me up, because some people hate shorts, they ruin America. Well, if you want to see the market go higher, you need shorts. Plain and simple. You need them. They will drive price higher. They've accumulated a significant amount. Some of them will not like the fact that it's gone this long, and they will cover, and that will push price higher without longs having to invest additional funds that they may not have. Just may not have. Yeah, we'll look at GDX. Let's do that. Go over here. GDX. And we talked about miners and various things being a little bit behind signal-wise, which is why I like to go to like the GLD, the SLVs, and you get your earlier setups from them. So you can see that it was yesterday. So it was late. I mean, we had these signals 2 days ago from the overall market, and we talked about that. CNBC. Yeah, I had to give up watching any of those things a long, long time ago because the comments news just never matched the signals. And then you're left with what? This is where people get paralyzed, particularly when grabbing my indicators in that for the first time, because they're still so used to looking at the news, what's being reported, and they think that somehow that's going to impact, in general, what's going on with their setups. And unfortunately, no, it doesn't really. I mean, any news that's worth knowing has already been known by people who have money, and they're going to make trades based on that information. Where we get anomalies is when it's something nobody expected. Your terrorist events, sudden death of somebody, things, yeah, there you go. My wife, TMZ is news. Really? TMZ? Yeah. So when TMZ breaks a story about, Bill Gates on his yacht, that's, going to move the market. And that makes as much sense as, talking heads on CNBC saying that materials are dead, right? Wasn't that last week that you guys wrote to me that they were saying to get out of materials, that it was over? I'm still looking at our CLF and X and WLT are all doing fine. How's that? So, just points it out. Any improvement from my GLD yet? Let me look. Nah. Still holding. Again, that target's up there at 73. And still in red trend. In fact, let's take a look at the shakeout and then find out what our trend possibilities are as far as gold goes. No time soon is it going to be changing. Yeah, potentially. In the next day or two, could go to green trend. That would shock some people. Of course, they're not going to look at it as green trend. It's like the debate I had with this young lady about Win, and she was saying, "Don't you know that it's red trend, that the candlestick was red?" And I'm like, okay. Your computer may have said that because it's a down day, it's going to give you a red candle for your candlesticks, but you're not looking at my trend model. Okay, my trend model supersedes over the top of this. So if I go to my trend model and disable it, this is what I see for my charts. These are what my candles look like. I just color them white. I don't want any coloring whatsoever because I'm going to apply my trend model. And you notice that you'll see my GAM is here. You can't see the MBI because the candles are white and so is the MBI, but that sort of, gives you a different idea, because I always tell people it's like, from a basic standpoint, you don't even really have to do much other than just look at the trend model change, and you can trade that. You can change the red trend from green trend and follow it there. Dots give you some additional bonus to that, particularly when it comes, even before, a fiscal cliff deal. And no one's, I've still not gotten a credible answer from anyone that I, tweet about that, because nobody can give me an answer as to why I was getting all these buy signals before the fiscal cliff deal when supposedly it hadn't been decided. And you tell me who's going to invest the kind of money that I'm going to see a dot show up on 80% of the stocks in the market if they don't know something. It's not a shock. So in this particular case, she was talking about right over here where Win had, from her standpoint, is a red candle, and that trend changed and it was going down. And I was like, no, I don't see that, because I'm looking at Power Mo. My Power Mo is still climbing. In fact, today we're almost at that break-even point. Look at that, 2081, 2090. Both still in charge, but just barely. And it'll be interesting because bears look like they want to really attack this and move it to the negative side, but dang, that's some strong buying within that overall setup. That's going to be a tough nut to crack on that one. Yesterday's orange dot didn't show on yours. Now that would be interesting. We would need to look at that. Let's see, where am I at? Oh, we were going to look at a couple of the other indicator stocks that were showing up. We'd gone around in circles about this with MasterCard, and I talked about it the other day. It just finally reached over the sell signal 25, and boy, talk about just continuous upcharge. So yeah, we got the short dot signal, okay, but did we get the trigger? All we were looking for was a move down from our shakeout, and could we get it? No, couldn't get it. Are we getting it today? 26? No, still going higher. So even though it's down $6, that's still moving. but that's going to be a lower positive extreme at least. But still, too many buyers. It's crazy, but that happens. Need to look at my expanded ratio histogram to get an early signal there. Let me go ahead and put that on there. I want to see that. Nah, look at how bullish that is. Wow. Anyway, good possibility of a resolution to the downside in here, but I needed to get my yellow back above the orange, and it didn't happen. So this is just the opposite of what we were talking about on Apple. All right, so that's exactly what we were talking about. Oh, really? Apple blast off? I mean, see, that's where it's funny for me because in my mind, Apple already blasted off. All right, we already had the signal. It's done. You know, uh, waiting for price to actually prove it. Yeah, okay, we do have to wait for that, but it's going to come when it comes. We look at our intraday setup for Apple. Okay, so this was interesting because it was like we had a couple people that were posting about the dot alerts and I know that it was like, well, I lost some money on the early move, and it's like, well, wait a minute, if you were following this setup, you knew to get out at that point. We didn't get this signal to here, which called for a significant discount to the setup, and called for a pretty decent move to the upside as well. So has it just begun? Yeah. Still, does Apple, represent with some issues? Yeah, it does. But overall, that daily setup, you're going to be hard pressed to keep a fractal buyer like that on that daily from getting what they want when they're having to suck up the quantity they are for us to even see the dot. There's only going to be so much supply, and there are only going to be so many people who can short a setup, or feign to short a setup, kind of depress the bid and ask. And then something like Apple gets in a momentum move, and boom, it just explodes. Nobody wants to be left behind, and with the cost of options, particularly in this particular case with the puts and that, when they start selling those, it's going to drive it even more. Finally, yeah, I know. Okie dokie. Let's see how's AIG doing from that overall setup. See, very nice. I put this chart up back here this morning. Is anyone going to comment about it hitting the targets and that? No. And I'm used to that. I just for me it's a nice record because stock twits, the charts are there. Everyone can go back and look at them, and we can go through the commentary on everything. Google from its daily, that looks positive from a Google standpoint. I know that we just started to get some weakness from the power mo right here. We'll have to keep an eye on the up down power setup, but not bad in general. Oh, you want to see a bull setup from that up down power? Well, we talked about that over here. Like in Google, I even pointed out one where it reached 100+% to the downside. Let me see if I can find that again. These particular waves come down. You reach some pretty extreme points, but my favorite bull setups are these right here, where you've got the bull side on the positive, and then boom, you get this extraordinary move down, but you'll get a positive reading from the up down power at these particular points. That's your best one. Let me see if we've got a clear one that's that I can expand that will show it pretty straightforward. Right here. Well, yeah, it just happened. See, I could have just left the chart where it was. Let me disable this. Alright, in particular, you see bulls fading the situation. They're no longer actively buying, alright, in this particular case. And then, boom, bears move to the negative side. And then I get this pivot coming down where the bears are still active within the setup. But boom, I pivot back upward. Alright, doesn't hurt that, I'd already gotten the dot fractal buy setup prior to it, but this shift was taking place behind the scenes, and then this just confirmed that move. So the fact that, yeah, you have this, that's a pink dot, show me yellow fractal. I know, pink dot, but the fractal's yellow. There's only so many names I can come up with. There's a nice string of them too. Clear buy signal from that setup. You don't need to look at the relationship because, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to, because one of them is a negative number and the other one's a positive number. So there's that setup that can, take place. I think Apple had another one where we were like minus 100 and some percent. Oh yeah, right here. Let's show this for Apple because it was really good. Don't want the horizontal line. I want the shakeout to disable. Okay, right here. Let me put an ellipse on it, make it clearer for you, because it happened more than once, which just meant that they were really, adding into this during the whole decline. I'm going to enlarge this ellipse so that we can get to the upside of it. Okay, so in essence, we're looking at these situations that were taking place where buyers were exceeding sellers throughout most of this dip. Now, that's a pretty significant move. I mean, you would have felt that from, 580 to 515, but clearly throughout that entire dip, and most definitely when we had this series right here, these guys were sucking up every little bit they could, even though shorts were massively invested into the setup. And I look for these kind of anomalies. How many people have the stomach for that? This is where you have to use your power momentum and a little bit more of your timing setups, because you're not going to want to suffer. I mean, a lot of people did suffer through that kind of down draw without getting, overly concerned with it. But, utilizing changes in the power momentum, give you added capabilities. In this case, some tough plays, because you get the buy signal. Sure, you want your discount from this particular setup, but you had a good positive signal from power momentum along with your up down power. So you're thinking, why isn't price moving in more immediately? Why is it continuing its decline? And this is where we can bring back our extreme histogram, because these will happen. All right, so we had the dip below the red line, so it was looking for a retest of the low, but it got the retest of the low, and then still kept fading. So it was quite a tough scenario where these guys were just pretty much backing off from the overall setup and allowing it to just, cascade. And we saw that in our extreme shakeout readings here. I mean, we were way in the dumps here. This is in the minus 30s for Apple. All right, so this is why, some people say, well, what do I need the shakeout that for? Well, once you got below this minus 12, oh, you have to, hold on, because, I mean, even though you're getting these extreme setups, you had to look at it from more of a, soft setup, because this told you that all your big players were out of this scenario. Now, what I tell people to look for on my shakeout here is this dip of the blue line below, the yellow below the blue. Okay, so I'm not even looking, and let me draw my lines, because I'm not even looking at a long, even though I'm getting a bright, potential bifractal in these setups. I'm not interested when I've got a situation like this. I need a vertical line. There we go, vertical line. All right, so we dip below negative 12. Gosh, I gotta keep going back. It was like right about here. All right, so that wasn't that long ago. That was October. Before that, we even had a continuous short setup, because if I shrink the chart enough, we can go back to here where the trend changed from green to red, and that was back up here at the 700s. Well, when I say the big guys are sucking it up, what eventually happens is there's just nobody else to sell. Nobody else is willing to give up their shares, and then the shorts have a problem because they're fully invested. There's just nothing left. So at that particular point, it becomes a supply issue. It just is. There's none. You know, you're not going to drive it any lower because there's just nobody interested in selling. And then what happens is you get these violent days intraday when you're looking at your day trading setups, and that's where it starts to build up. And this is where, our banded ratio histogram will usually go off the highway because it will let us know that, okay, we've got, freak out activity. Let's put it up there because we'll see the freak out activity right here. All right, and particularly when we dip below this negative 13 here, your freak out events taking place, and it's telling you, and it was telling us that it was, fairly decent bullish setups in these dips, but we weren't getting a corresponding dip of the yellow. What you need is both of these situations. And then in a situation like this where you expect the move to go up, it doesn't happen. These guys will make it pay to the downside because they'll just flip over and then go to the opposite direction. And that's why you saw that continual cascade. And then we dipped below the blue right at this point, came back up, and that was the earliest sign that I saw that we started to have, buyers moving back into the setup, and we were looking for that pump. Problem was the pump came and it became overbought like almost instantaneously. I mean, it was like super fast overbought, just as the shakeout was improving. But then you get an attractive situation like this where we're at the same lows, and the shakeout clearly was telling us that there were active guys buying into this decline all throughout. And I just considered this one was a test of the overhead resistance. And they just kind of like pumped it, and boom. All right, I know how many shares are available at these particular points. Comes back down, and their expectation will be that they'll hit a little bit less on that next move up, and most likely then we would see green trend on Apple from a daily. So hopefully that makes sense, because at a certain point there is just no more liquidity from a downside move. It just dries up. So we saw this also take place, if I move it over, right here, where we went negative. It was negative 20 for the bulls, negative 14 for the bears. So the bulls were actually exceeding the bears in this particular setup right here before, and this is days before the pop. And so this is where people will say to me, well, I had no idea. And it's like, well, but it took time for them to build it up. And so people are going to go back and look, and they're going to look at my thread, and they're going to say, how are you bullish on this setup? I didn't, it just didn't make any sense. Well, to me it made sense. And I hopefully it was depicted well enough, and I put enough of the charts up that it made it clear what was going on. And why, when we dip below this negative 30, and I told everyone it's going to take months to resolve this. I got a lot of resistance on that, but it's just the way it was. Well, should you hold it or sell it tomorrow? I mean, I see this as the beginning of a potentially much larger move up to the full target. Now, if you bought this week's call and you only have one day, you got a little bit of time compression. You need to start looking at your 15-minute and your 78-minute charts. Okay, so if you bought it for this week, then you got to start looking at it from a tighter time frame. Okay, to give yourself, really the kind of exactness that you want to be taking from it. The difficulty there is that you sometimes will get too close to the action, and you'll want to get out a couple of times. This is where I look for a confluence. I'll have a 15, a 30-minute, a 78-minute, and I'll be watching. Okay, am I getting close to my 78-minute target, which is at 527? It's hard for people, because this becomes a very different situation for people. And you would think that at this point, I mean, gosh, what are we looking at, 20 plus viewers or so? You would think that there'd be 50 people or more wanting to watch this who've been talking about Apple for forever. And, talking about sitting on the sidelines, not knowing what this. Some people just love it because they love it. I don't care. I give you the signal when the signal is, and we give a target. It's not like I'm making numbers up. They're there. And it's all just really subject to your tolerances, because it's different for everybody. But when you find yourself getting up significantly and buying at the bottoms of these setups, I tell people, it's like, okay, would you feel better getting rid of part of your position and then holding the rest for the full target? And for some people that works, because it's like, okay, yeah, I've locked in a profit. and I can move on from there. So there's a psychological element you have to understand for yourself, and there's no way to teach that. That is an individual thing that everyone is going to have to work with. Can you still buy the Apple? Well, yeah. Look at this. Okay, now the original Signal came in at the close right here. Okay, that was at 5/19/63. All right, so theoretically, you're only up $2. The fact that we're so insistent upon getting a discount in Red Trend means that you pick up that much more. This is an extra $3 within the setup. I consider it gift money. They just gave it to you. But then again, a lot of people throw gift horses. Well, what is it? No, you look a gift horse in the mouth, which is, I guess, a horsing thing to say that they're checking the teeth and that to make sure if the horse is good. It's a free horse. Even if it keels over and you after one day of work, you got what you wanted out of it. All right. In this case, they gave us our Red Trend discount. You take it. Move on. But no, I mean, it looks fine to still reach the target. There's no reason why it wouldn't. I know that there were some incredulous comments as to whether I expected, this to happen within the 5 bars. And it's like, yes. I thought it would be 2 bars after we had that initial signal. And what is this? Is this the second bar? Don't tell me it is, because then it'll inflate my ego. Just kidding. No ego, just trading. I'm going to be wrong, I'm going to be right. Yeah, you like that? You want me to put that one back up there so you can see that green? Now, that's not done yet. This bar closes at the end of the day. So it may close with a green bar at the end of the day. But you know what's nice? This will be available for people to go back and look at live. They'll see it happen. Well, you know what? We should have traded. And that was because I was busy this morning doing that programming. Where is that? Yes. Gotta go to my Windows. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, 10,000 activated. Alright, so we had that nice one. That would have been good to have put out there for everyone to get a chance to see that setup taking place. But you can see, kind of evened out nicely. I don't think I have all the dots turned on this one, do I? No, I don't. That's bad. I should have those on there visually for people. See, they want me to keep the charts clean in that, but then I sometimes over-clean it. You thought that was funny, over-cleaning?
I have plenty if you need to clean.
Yeah, you got a list for me, do you? Okay. Oh, my goodness gracious. What am I going to do? Like, get excited with the gains, that's fine. But don't let it impact your trading. You're going to get 1 billion of these signals. Oh, and look at that one. Now, okay, well, let's evaluate this, because people just got this red dot short on their alert. So let me put my extreme histogram back on here. And let's see what the probabilities are of that retracing. Alright, so we just went from red trend to green trend. Can anyone tell me what we do when we change from red trend to green trend? It's a fine line between excited and exit, right? Alright, well, we've gone from red trend to green trend. Now, this is, again, yes, we have the red dot signal. Green trend. Oh, let's see. What's the range on that? $4, right? So I'm looking for at least another $1 plus higher before we would even think about getting into that short. So is there a rush? No, there's no rush. Yes, thank you. You have to count, or at least have the expectation that there is this momentum move and 5 bars after the trend change. Now, certainly it's overbought in a very fast time frame. Is it overbought when we look at our 78-minute chart? Well, we don't know. We don't have our extreme histogram on there, so we got to put it on. No, minus 13, not overbought. Okay, so there's room. But, do have the yellow having moved back above the setup here. We still have shorts in control on that 78 minute, even through this setup. They're just getting squeezed hard right now. And who won that battle? Shorts won that one as well. So, we could be looking at the potential of a peak move here in the short term. Does that mean that the overall target in that is in jeopardy? No, but it means that, this bar could end somewhere shy of it. You end up with a little bit of a retrace before you continue on. It's possible. I tend to think that we're poised for the gap move to the upside within this daily setup, because these guys have set up now over a series of days. You get your positive move. The expectation should be for a gap higher. Oh yeah, well, we talked about the weekly chart just the other day, and those projections are very nice if we look at that weekly chart. Beautiful. MBI from a weekly, up target was 577. On which time frame are you talking about? On that Apple when I was showing it? Well, in this particular case, when we're looking at this, and this is where, the up-down power as well as the power momentum showed that we had this huge influx of buyers right back here, and they bought up that big giant supply. So the fact that the momentum shifted back here was not a big concern to me when we were looking at this, because when you get that huge differential, it just showed the dramatic nature from this move coming back down here, and this is why we were looking for, like I said, 2 more moves. Now this bar's not done, so you can't really look at this one. I have to put the little cursor over there. Alright, so you can't look at that one. So in this particular case, shorts were still continuing in their setup, but when we looked at our shakeout indicator, we were ready to bounce on this one. I would have liked to have seen the yellow stay below the red for a little bit longer, because you normally don't worry about turnaround or any kind of fading into the setup when you have the red above the yellow until it eventually does the crossover, like right here. So it was underneath, boom, came up, but once it got above it, then it's like, oh, now you have to worry about that potential roll back over. I know that gets a little nuanced, but when we're looking at our power momentum, you can see the orange right here gave us the belief that we were going to see the positive move. What I wanted to see was the orange pop above here. The fact that the yellow pivoted, we have the orange above. So in this particular case, the bulls are winning in this setup because the orange is above here. If we get down below here, though, I need the orange below as the lead. Okay, either that or I need my cyan below this -7 number, the green line, because that would also be bullish, because then I start getting into the relationship between the 3 lines, and then we really can talk about the relationship between the 6 lines of the string. And I kind of showed that in the fractal story. If you go back and want to watch that video, kind of gives you a representation of the different colors and how that string looks. I know, and then try and extrapolate that into numbers and what it means. It's not simple stuff. But in this particular case, even if this bar closes with the green trend, you can buy Apple at that point. Okay? So, one way or another, it's all coming back down to the same, setup. So even if this retraces a portion, closes, and it closes with a green, we don't know until the end of the day, because this isn't going to close until the day is out. So that's a ways away. Another 51 minutes. And I'm certainly not going to be on for the next 51 minutes to have shown it. God, I hope not. My wife would shoot me. Oh, I shouldn't say that. We're not allowed to talk about guns, are we? No. No gun talk. Now, we were just talking about that. Oh, I think I even had a 10-minute chart. Where did I do with it? AIG 15-minute. No, I had a 10-minute somewhere. Oh, maybe it was Amazon. Yeah, that was a nice Orange dot buy for Amazon, 15-minute. Another pink dot. Who wants to see the pink dot? There it is. Slide that over. Boom, pink dot. It's so bright and flashy too. Let me flip this to a 10-minute. Well, let me change. I know I had a 10-minute somewhere. Yeah, and so people were asking me about, VIX and those things, and unfortunately we just weren't getting market buy signal yet. A market VIX buy signal. Got all this data corrections. I wonder what's going on with them. Alright, I'm at a loss for finding my 10 minutes, so I'm just going to create one. PL. So what do you think? Which one should it be? Should it be AIG that we add, or Checkpoint?
I told you last night my choice was AIG.
You like AIG? You insurance kind of person? Hey, you didn't read what your candy heart said on it.
I know, you stole them from me.
I stole them? No, mine says you're hot. It's a yellow one. Alright, Apple 15. We want to go down to a 10-minute. Now you can do that from the symbol, or at the top of my screen I have a setup there. Oh, those yellows are sour. There's time. There's always time. Alright, so again, see, Z-Man is looking at the change of red trend to green trend. So he got his green trend, green dot short. But is he jumping on that? He better not. Because he knows better, because he hasn't counted 5 bars. Has he? No. Okay? So, sometimes you have to step off your gas pedal and think about what you're getting information-wise. Because the information in that transition from red to green trend is significant, is why I pointed out. Now, when I look at the red dot, does the red dot say to me short? No. It says I have a signal that I've gotten overbought and that I should be looking to do my short. Okay? Followed by the gray dot right after it. That gets a bit more compelling. The problem is I'm only 2 bars out of red trend. And this is where that becomes just too important to ignore. No, I'm not accusing you of doing that. I was just using it as a metaphorical concept. Okay, because the reality is, when we look at all these higher time frames, we know that these higher time frames are looking for, the bigger move. And a lot of people they're not going to see it. But, there will be a couple of people that will go back through my thread and they'll say, you know what, I saw the other day he was really bullish, and he's been bullish the last 2 days based on these fractal things. What's that all about? And so that's good, because, at least people will think about it and say, okay, maybe there's a different way to approach things. And that's all I'm asking, is just, give it an opportunity to look at it. Nothing is perfect. These are real players. They're not going to be perfect, but they win a bit more than they lose. And they make a lot more money than they lose. And so that becomes very significant. If I can to MA, we'll look at that one. And, that's a nice looking chart. That's a nice looking move. And that's certainly going to help the market, because as Apple moves, you'll be hard pressed to keep the overall market down. And again, a lot of people are just going to be, shocked that it's doing, this thing, and it's just sort of ho-hum for me. And I think that maybe that's not good. Maybe I should be all jumping up and down and excited for everybody. But it's sort of like, okay, it's not like we didn't know. Or did we all know? Can we all agree that we knew? That what we're seeing is just the end result of what we already knew. It's sort of like taking a picture of an event, and we looked at it and we knew that that event took place. Okay, and that's all that we're saying with it. So that was fun. No need to worry about that yet. Gosh, you're only 2 bars into it. You got a little ways more to go before that gets compelling. And look at the nice rise in the power. Now that's starting to ebb because this bar just started, so it's a little early on that. But you can see the nice rise. There's nothing about that from a power momentum standpoint that's short. Continuous power. Do I have it on this chart? No. See, and this is the thing. I left out some of these things on purpose because, and it's nice that we're getting the questions about it because I like the fact that we're moving beyond, just a red and a green trend. I mean, gosh, for how long was I just having to talk about that? Because that was the most that, I could get people to follow. Now we're starting to talk about some really good, significant items. Now see here, I put it in the wrong box. Scaling, I need that to be no axis all the way down at the bottom. There we go. Alright, so starting to build up there from a short standpoint. That is a 376. Let me do that math real quick. I mean, it's going to be changing while we're looking at it, but just to get a general idea. 219 divided by 376. It's only 58%, so it's not bad. That's why you have to do the math, because sometimes it looks, I thought, wow, that looked more than, 50%, but nope, that's all it is. Just a little bit right around that range. And that's going to change, move up and down, and that's fine. You'll notice, though, that when I'm looking at some of the smaller time frames, you can go to a little bit bigger setting. That's a pretty tight move, 10.75. At 15-minute chart like this, you could do a 25, 19, 9, or you could even do a 19, 5. I like that one too. It's not going to make enough difference that it's going to alter, overall. But you can see, looking at it from a little bit broader perspective over this last setup, that's a little bit higher percentage here. So let's take a look at that one. We'll just say 3 divided by 4.3. 69%. So you see, you're right at the edge. The ESP sounds, it does sound better for the most part. And this is where people come to me and say, well, you're predicting price. There's no way to predict price. And I'm like, I'm not predicting anything. All I'm showing you is what's already happened. Oh, well, there's a 15-minute chart, so when that 15-minute bar expires, you'll have your final reading, and the next bar will open up. Okay, so this is why I changed a lot of these, because I used to have it, for me personally, the dots would show up before the close of a bar. It would kind of give me a pre-warning, but I was too reluctant to do that in giving them out, because it's like I can look at the additional readings and know when there's going to be a change within that, or when it's a little more suspect. You're not going to always see that for everyone. So what I did was I changed the bar status to a 2, which from the computer lingo just means that at that close of the bar, and this is why on the emails you'll see that it's like 7 or 8 seconds before the actual close of the bar that it triggers it. So it looks like the email's 1 minute late because it'll always go into the next minute, but it's not. It's usually happened within those few seconds. And then it becomes a question some people ask about, on the dot alert situation. If you're getting all of the stocks, all of the alerts, I can send them directly from the server, and I put those people into the server name. The other ones have to go through a filter, which then will separate the different stocks. So there's always, and then of course it sends out those emails one at a time. So there's always a little teeny lag in that overall setup. But there's that cough again. You can't get rid of that thing. You know what? Let's look at a 5-minute. What the heck? We're crazy and wild folks here. We can do that. Let's look at some other stuff while that's happening. PCLN, overall was, I can't do it when it's calculating like that. It's always a pain. Bear with it a second. 5 minutes is going to take a little bit more because of the extra calculations that it's got to run. In the interim, let me put up So when we go back to the website for dot alerts, I'll probably be removing Visa that you see here and moving on to, well, Amy selected AIG. So the cough sounds drier than before. Yeah, she's getting better. There we go. All right, there's the Apple 5-minute. How beautiful is that from a chart? Now, this is where, depending on the amount of real estate you have and how much your setup is. Okay, I see MA. I'll get there. You can put your 5-minute, your 15, well, your 5, 10, 15, 30 minutes, 78-minute, and then have a daily over on the other side. And boom, you've got your whole setup. And then if you link the time and interval, you can just click different stocks and roll through them. And then if you have your alerts hooked up as well, an alert comes through, says, oh, on the bottom of your screen it says go to, your Apple or your Google. You can just click your Google and all your screens will change together, and you'll be able to see the signal that way. So that will give you some added bonus. But let's squeeze this 5-minute chart. And we can see, look at how many buy setups these guys were all doing. And boy, isn't it a coincidence? Not. But they were all doing it roughly right around the same frame. Okay, looking for an average weighted price. And then when they get their average weighted price, kaboom. Okay, so just that straightforward. So each of you should get on StockTwits and mention to everybody that, we actually, can identify some of these things, and you'll help somebody else out. Because then they'll get it, and they'll be able to work with it. And ultimately, that's the idea. I mean, that's why I put them in there. I don't need to, go through these each day, because I have this stuff. I want people to get an idea that there's a little bit more math behind what's going on. And there's a reason that most physicists these days are being moved and hired on Wall Street and not in, particle theory and that, because there's a whole new application to stealth and a bunch of other things when it comes to being stealthy within a market concept. I get that a lot. Where I've had a bunch of people who get the indicators and they don't want to tell their friends because they look like a genius when they're telling their friends they're doing this, that, and the other. And I can understand that. I mean, that's kind of fun to do because it's sort of like, haha, I got something you don't. I'm not telling you. But at a certain point, there are enough sharks out in this water that it's beneficial to help people. And I don't worry about it because I know a lot of people aren't even paying attention to what I'm doing, and that's okay. I don't mind. So, as it gets closer to our, some people thought, I actually had a couple of emails came through, thought I was nuts on suggesting over $10 for Apple after the collapse this morning. Guess I'll have to email them back later. Alright, let's flip over to MA. Tired of looking at easy winners. Aren't you tired of easy winners? Don't we want to look at the tough stuff?
No.
No? You like the easy winners. I know you do. You love the ES when it does that. Yeah, what indicators? It's just a bunch of random lines. These aren't really indicators. And it's not. It's not an indication. It's what has already happened. Alright, MA, kind of, I mean, you can't deny that bullish nature from the setup. There's been no change in my power momentum. Nothing I can do about that. Yes, it dropped $6 today, but you've got to retrace some of these positive extremes. That's fine. It's still not a short from this. No. Oh, you guys are all so greedy. You're not going to share it with your friend. No. And Z-Man, you promised you were going to do a good deed. You did. Don't forget that. Alright, 10-minute, let's move on to, we didn't look at Amazon. We haven't looked at any of these good ones. Come on, we're too myopic with our focus here. No, Sherry, nobody likes easy winners. Don't you understand that's not possible? The market is too tough. There's no, random walk theory. My little girl, she did, I can't call her little, she's 10 now. Oh, what was sad? She was actually the lead. In fact, if I go back, she has more views on her science project than a ton of the other videos that I have up. What is that all about, people?
She's better than you.
Yeah, can you believe that? In fact, I was just going to look at that because let me click it. What is it? It's right down there in midway. Bella's Science Project. There it is. Alright, so if you get a chance, go to YouTube, our channel, and you can check out Isabella's Science Project if you haven't. Oh, okay, so some people have seen it. And, you know, she actually went through and did the work on these setups. I mean, those are beautiful fractal patterns right there that you're looking at. So people think, well, fractal can't be complex shape. I mean, when you look at the design of that setup back there, that's incredible that you could take that from just a couple of lines. And I love the math that she's learning with this because they just don't teach it in school regularly. And it's something that, you know, everyone should turn their kids onto when you get into these ratios and how they work with regard to nature. I mean, right there, you're looking at, you know, natural cell division expands out. It's exactly, you know, how you create the structures for insects and everything else. So, get a chance, check her out. She'll be thrilled. She loves looking and see how many people looked at her video. Power mode settings, which time frame? Go ahead and write out that question. I'm not sure I quite understand that. I mean, you can write it out because there's plenty of time. I'll look at it. Thank you for that one. Alright, so here's Amazon. Now, it had its short setup right here. And look at the difference. Just the other day, we ended up with our lower shakeout reading. Alright. Ended up with the flat line here. Still positive from its power mode, but just about to flip. What I wanted to see on here was my expanded ratio histogram. I need to put that on real quick. Because that's where you're going to get your earliest signals of everything. It's always going to come from this right here. When you primarily see it. When we saw this setup right here, that tells me that at some point down the road, within the week or so, I'm going to get my retrace. And still held up pretty bullish, though, with the purple moving back up. I mean, the orange staying above. So, may not get to the full target on this particular setup, which is down at 260.72. Went to 262. Now, the expanded ratio histogram is a tough one because, it's like I've explained in the past, it is a highway. Alright, so if this is your center median, the red line, this is lane 1 right here between the magenta line, and the opposite flow of traffic is down here. Going to the edge of the shoulder on this green. Now, you're off the shoulder here when you're between these two lines, either above or below. Now, think of that as getting off of a freeway and moving on to a new freeway. Okay? Where your stochastics and all these other regular indicators just get overbought, they don't transition. Okay? Really what's happening is there is a seed transition taking place. Okay, you're moving from one direction to another, and there's no representation for them other than to say, oh, overbought over plus 70, plus 100, whatever, you know, you're looking at. And it doesn't vary, and that's a problem. So, it's very dynamic when you're looking at this expanded ratio histogram and understanding the relationship between what these lines are telling you. It's a very bullish setup when you see this cyan line moving to this plus 8 situation. When I see that, I get excited. But then, I have to talk about the angle. Because the angle, in relation to the other ones, has significance as well. And so, could I write 2 books on just the expanded ratio histogram? Yeah, easily. Do I want to? No. No, I don't. I really don't. And if I could just verbally dictate them, I mean, this is, you've noticed why I like video and those kind of things, as opposed, because to write this for you to read it would take so long. You know, the examples are, I think, the best way. But now you can see how cluttered all those lines with the names. Now, it's not a big deal when it's happening real time. When you're looking at a daily like this, it becomes just a lot of text. And this was because they wanted me to describe for people what was happening, so I'm trying to give it with the up dot. For such a complex histo. Um, yeah, wow. Because the reality is, I really would need to show this in 3 dimensions to really give it the kind of complexity and depth that it needs for the expanded ratio histogram. And um, at first I was only showing it. And I think the videos will have just the 2 lines, the yellow and the cyan, and that was to try and simplify it. But it really became more powerful in trying to depict people, trend in an alternative sense. And in this particular case, that stems from having it above the line here, and then also having the orange above the yellow as we're rising into this particular case. And so, from a continued bullish standpoint, when this pivots lower, and now that we've moved up over here, we're about to create a new dynamic change, and it looks like that potentially this particular point is going to be the upside for Amazon, not to the downside, having seen our orange above. And here's the example of where last time it happened, and you begin to see this setup. Whenever you're looking at the chart for your expanded ratio histogram, first one I'm looking at is the yellow line. Okay, so I want to see this yellow line. Now, what I really care about are extreme moves, and those being off the highway. So when I get below or outside of these 2 colored lines, it becomes interesting. Everything else in between here usually is kind of mundane, and you can see that it's mundane. I know this sort of looks like an EKG at times, but there's a little bit more reason to it than that. And then I'm looking at the relationship. Like when I dip down here, this is bearish in this relationship because orange came down, but my yellow is far lower. So I'm expecting this to resolve to the downside. So I'm expecting this downside target here, when this triggered, I'm expecting it to go to the low side. And sure enough, it accommodated. Let me get rid of these so we can see it a little bit more clearly and get a better understanding of it, because it's a worthwhile topic, and boy, I could do 2+ hours on just this expanded ratio histogram and bore some of you to tears. I want more people to be able to watch instead of fewer, but it's a good point, because you can see this relationship. We've gone way off the edge. Okay, so you've had this wonderful exuberance, positive extreme, so you're expecting maybe the low to be retraced. The target's a little bit lower than that. Fine. We'll evaluate it at that time. So some people will say to me, well, why is your target only there? Well, I have a much bigger target. Well, fine, have a bigger target, but I'm looking for benchmarks. We want to reach that point, and then we can evaluate what the readings are there. We're not blind. We can see changes as they develop, and every day the market is changing. So, it's one of those aspects that you just have to keep evolving yourself to what the current conditions are. You can't turn a blind eye to it. It won't work for you. All right, so this dip below here, and then boom, stayed above. That's actually a little bit bullish, but see, you get your bonus when your gray dot comes in. And at this point, I'm looking now for my blue line. If it starts to rise in relation to these things, then I know that my short pressure is building. If I get this to the negative or to the positive, either side of it, usually going to get more of a positive thing. So as this is approaching back to the 0, I'm effectively achieving a neutralization into the setup, and that's when I would expect my move to start to take place. And in this particular case, it took place again, and then you ended up with the yellow on the other side, and this is the mark of the beginning of my ratio size short signal. And this signal lasts for, typically when you're coming down here, the problem you had for it was that boom, it immediately dipped below the orange. That's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to get that move coming down below simultaneously, or keeping the yellow above. And so you ended up with your bullish flip going there, and the cyan moved up, negating my overall short setup coming down. And so that's tying in this dramatic move, because this should have pivoted lower. If this had pivoted lower, then I would have had a nice additional short view, as opposed to it popping back up to the upside. So I know it sounds convoluted because it is, to a degree, and that's the ever-changing setup within it. Because some people will look and say, okay, well, I saw it pop up here, this one went down, saw it pop up here, and then this one went up, so it's different. Well, no. If you look at that relationship, they're not even close to the same. But you have to look at more than just one element. So that's throwing that one out there. Oh, I have not gone through to test whether or not there is. There may very well be. I mean, I get torn in so many different directions that I don't always have time to go through and compare some of those unique aspects. If you were looking at it, it would be effectively this concept, only having the orange on the other side. That would be your bullish. We can go ahead and take a look and see if we can find one, like right here. This is what I would call a bullish ratio size. So I would be looking for this point, then I'd be looking for it to exceed the top right there as your signal, and then the return back down right here would be where I would expect the end of the signal. Alright, so completing the psi, with the line going back up, and let's see if it worked. Yeah, so that's where it began its downturn. So there you go. That would be a bullish ratio psi. We just kind of, it's exactly the opposite of the short. This is, your short configuration. But when you get these parallel drops, and I look for these setups where it goes from one end to the other, what I typically like to see from a nice ratio size that it'll break down below here. You'll keep your cyan down at a flat level, and then I know I'm looking for my big 100 and 200 point. Well, not 200, but usually between 90 and 120 points, roughly, for a daily ratio psi. In fact, if I pull a daily, the ES, where was that one right here? We had one not too long ago. Was it right here? No, that's the overall bullish one. Yeah, now see, this was an interesting one because this one should have resolved this, and this is where futures are a little bit different sometimes. No, the ABM is strictly a pattern following concept for price. So when I put the ABM on here, it's strictly going to be derivative of price and stalling in that way, and that's how it's able to follow it more closely. So like in this particular case, oh, that's why it's a 5,000 tick. I needed a daily. Because you will get some anomalies within intraday setups with the ratio side that you're not necessarily going to have on an overall daily chart. I can't figure out what I do with my, oh, there was the daily. Okay, I've got them overlapped. That's why it's not showing. Alright, that makes sense. Okay, but I don't have my expanded ratio histogram on here, so let's put it on. Okay, let me disable these so that we just have the expanded ratio histogram. Alright, so you can see we had the giant setup here where it just happened, and boom, we retrace, flipped all the way down, but that sudden cascade, and look at how far down that went. I mean, that was crazy how deep it was. But within this was your liquidity dump that took place at the end of the year. And we weren't seeing this from the INX, so we're just now resolving from the INX and the futures once they did that. And that was fiscal cliff kind of shenanigans where they, attempt to run stops just to squeeze people out, and they did a beautiful job of it. They did satisfy the retest of the low on this dip below the extreme here, so that was kind of nice when it happened. And then boom, got additional signal, hits the next day, and this is where most people got left behind. But now you can see that clearly we were not overbought within this setup from a daily. I mean, it's clear now. It wasn't clear for people before. So ratio side gets to be really a bit more complicated, and I want to come up with a technique to describe it that will be easier, particularly within the nuances, because it relies not only on the cyan and how it's been trailing, but it also is affected by a couple of other lines. And so, gosh, when you start getting into more than two or three different things, that really becomes tough to describe to people. So let's scroll through some of these little intraday momentary charts. A lot of little signals. We had some nice 78-minute signals come through. Google 15-minute chart. Looked at all those buys. I mean, and this is the thing where, you get a whole day of buys without a single loss on these setups. It didn't matter where you bought these. They shot up, hit their targets, boom, come back down. These never hit targets, but you kept getting signals. So after your 5-6 bars, you still kept getting signals, and then it continued forward. So nice from that standpoint. Google 78-minute, nothing going on particularly there. There's your Apple 5-minute. Getting closer to the target. Getting overbought. -4. That's pretty quick, and that's not going to be a good end to that. So does that make me lean towards any particular direction? Not if I don't hit my target, because the target's still the target. And now you're going to have green trend. But again, this is something we talk about. When this closes green trend, I expect the potential of 1 to 2 bars where you might get some little retrace, but still trend will be green. And, how will that translate for daily? What's my shakeout reading? -11. No, it's not going to help Apple from a daily standpoint. Still going to be in red trend. No help there. Any other requests real quick before we call it a day? It was good to go over these things. I'm glad most of you stayed with the overall project on it. What did I do with my 10,000 ticket? I wanted to see if I was getting any additional signals. You want to look at LVS, Microsoft. Okay, we'll look at those real fast. GLD, we went over GLD. Alright, let me get up a good chart that's got everything on there, so that when I run it, we'll have everybody all looking at the same thing. Okay, here we go. We'll use this Baidu chart. Let me squeeze up the power. Alright, so you'll have all your readings visible. Let me enlarge it a little bit so that it's easier to see. And get rid of that trend line. Okay. Well, let's begin by getting rid of these. Alright, so LVS. ISRG. Let's look at that one. ISRG. We talked about it just a little bit ago. Came, dipped, met its targets, got a little overbought, held on sideways, but like I said, any selling that was going on in there was going to be pretty good because you got a lot more activity within that, and you just had the turnaround from a bull side just the other day from your Power Mo. LVS. It's a dot alerter. Yeah, nothing. No, that's actually a lower shakeout, isn't it? 27, 26. So it's making the first lower shakeout. Still positive though, trend-wise from the expanded ratio histogram, staying well above the cyan, well above the yellow even. So the best you're going to get will be little retraces of the lows, but nothing horrible there. Microsoft. MSFT, did not like it. We had ugly Power Mo. We had looked at this one before. It faded over. Now it's finally gotten to oversold, and you're oversold at the exact same low levels. Notice the yellow. See, again, this is where you get just the exact opposite. Yellow is above, that's negative. So when it transitioned, notice how the yellow stayed above the orange. It's kind of like a perfect representation. Now, you will find this when you go through your Dow 30 stocks. You're going to find the setups are a lot cleaner. Just like you'll find them cleaner on your futures and your indexes, they're going to be a lot more stable. So bear that one in mind, because it's a liquidity issue as well. You have a far greater investment when you're going through some of these Dow component setups. Speaking of a Dow component setup, let's. I actually think that we talked about Walmart a little bit. Was starting to reach a bottom point. Look at how negative that momentum had gotten there. Still has. Again, this is a perfect ratio side right here. Boom, sets up to the negative side. Boom, comes down finally right here, and today is triggering the end of the downtrend. Alright, so let me draw this one, because this is a perfect ratio side. How exciting is that? We get a perfect ratio side. So this comes down, and normally what I'll do is I will mark it to where it dipped below. And I'm going to draw one more trend line. So this will get dropped down to where it dipped right here, and then I bring that to my green line right there, and that forms your ratio psi. So, congratulations, Microsoft. Wait, let's hear it for Microsoft.
That was easy.
It has completed its downtrend. And people will say to me, what the hell are you talking about? Doesn't mean it's not going to go lower, it just means it's completed this ratio side down move, and your expectation for lower has ended. So it did this for Walmart at, well, the signal would have come in at the open of that day, 72, and now you're here at 68 and change. Is there anything wrong with the Walmart chart? I know, I mean, you gotta have your that is easy button.
That was easy.
Oh wait, I should put the Apple one up there.
That was easy. That was easy.
You're tired of that already? Yeah, I know that was stupid. Okay. Alright, beyond Walmart, what else was there? Dang? Is that a actual symbol? $DANG? No. Is it DNG? No. Is it just DNG? Oh, well then, why'd you put, oh, because, I do that too sometimes for stock twits. I'll put a dollar sign when I'll be doing an email, and I'll put a dollar sign. Hey, you're like, too used to doing stock twits with that stuff. Alright, there you go, dang. What is this? E-commerce China. Okay. Alright, well, some people have trouble with these things, but what's really hard about this? Orange dot, catfish, boom. Stream fractal, catfish, boom. Oh. Gray dot, looks for a low retest, didn't happen yet. Still kind of hovering on that, but you do have an increased short interest there. Still bullish from the expanded ratio high. It's the Chinese Amazon. Okay, well that makes sense. It's like Baidu is the, Google of China. No problem with that. Oh, let's look at Netflix while I'm here. Why not? I'm just seeing if Apple's going to get to my target. Doesn't look like it's going to happen today. Netflix was ugly. Buy signals. Then it gave the short into a rising shakeout. Never a good thing. Now, yesterday was the first day that you could kind of say, okay, fine, I've got my turnaround. I can begin to think about a short. So, from that standpoint, Netflix potentially, but even still, you're going to face heat because, again, you don't have the yellow above, so it's not quite the exact setup you want within this overall configuration. So when you start looking at those in total, yeah, I've got a decline in my shakeout, not good. Power momentum is not great. Do have a few too many shorts, even though there's more buyers, and seeing no let up in the trend overall. So, am I going to be looking for a high degree of success when taking that kind of setup? No. So, but if you are inclined to be short because you don't want to go long just for whatever reason, you're going to have to look for quicker hits. So you need to look at a little bit smaller time frames. That's all. I mean, there's different ways to play it. You don't have to be all one setup or another. And if you're concerned that there's going to be the decline, you would buy your put at the move higher. And then every time there's a dip, you can either sell a put for, weeklies going forward, and you can create yourself a hedge setup. And it pays for your put premium. Now, in doing something like that, you would look at a $100 strike and want to be looking at somewhere into March or June for that. So it's a little bit more expensive, but it's supposed to be, because then you can then sell your puts at the lower strike until you reach an equilibrium. You do that each week. Okay? So it's just an alternative, and that's how we play a lot of the different hedges.
How about Chipotle since it's almost lunchtime?
Oh, Chipotle. Good choice. CMG would be the one. And we could even look at BWLD. We've never been to one of those. Buffalo Wild Wings. We saw that. They just put those out. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Yeah, not so happy for CMG. And the short, beautiful setup with that moving below. A little concerned, though, that you're going to hold up, but it wasn't that big a target, so didn't have to go that far. 291.65 from 301. $10. Boom. 291.70 today. Look at that. Nice. Just in time. Good call.
You're welcome.
We should have looked at Chipotle, 2 weeks ago. Well, we did. We did, and you can run these through and have all of them set up. Not a problem. That is one of the things I haven't accomplished yet, have we, dear?
Sorry, what was that?
Working up having daily dot alerts for people.
I don't know. Are people interested in daily dot alerts?
Oh, I don't know. Is anyone even interested in daily dot alerts, so that you would get these daily signals from Dow 30, whatever? Does anyone even have a remote interest in that? I didn't even know if there wasn't any interest at all, because I get these signals constantly. That's a couple of yeses. I mean, gosh, I get so many of these dot alerts from a daily standpoint. And it wouldn't be that tough, though, because, they would just come at the end of the day. You would just get a second signal at the end of a day, and it would say, okay, yeah, these popped up. As I thought about it, would be interesting for, like, the Dow 30, S&P 100, even NASDAQ 100. Because I could...
Not for every stock, just, like, the main keywords?
That's what I'm talking about. Well, yeah, even the Dow 30, I would not do J&J. I'm not going to do some of these stupid... I mean, it's like... Really, you're going to trade 20 cents when you can trade these other ones at the same price and get dollars? No. No. Oh, Sherry wants to know if you know how to read the charts.
Of course I do.
What? She can't hear you from over there.
Of course I do.
You yell? Yeah, even Isabella
I've been around a little too long for this.
She's been around a long time. Isabella at 10 can read the charts. In fact, she came up with the starfish. The starfish fractal.
Well, you shouldn't get too into it. Bella will have to be a guest speaker one day. She has no school the 18th or the 21st.
Oh, that's good. The 18th and the 20th. We'll do one with the 21st. We'll do it with Isabella because she'll come in and
She'll be a guest speaker.
she'll be a guest speaker and she'll go over the catfish. I mean, not catfish. What am I saying? The starfish. She created the starfish. And, gosh, she traded that all the time on futures. For setup, it was typically a 5-point pattern. And she loved it. Buffalo Wild Wings, though, see, look at that. Nice. Nice. Not in a row on the same day, but 1, 2, 3, 4. All buying. I mean, come on. Really? They just stacked the deck on that setup there. And then, it was looking a little more bearish, and it did move lower. So, it was correct on the ratio side there. But then the orange moved below, and, it exploded to the upside. You also had your early signal with the shakeout. Love that. Love it when they do those setups. Well, let's put Win up real quick before we get a close. I do not want to be live when the bell rings because I get a flood of information, and man, oh man, that would just mess up my computer because I'll get a billion signals right at the close. Win daily. Look at that. Nothing special. See, no, it retraced. the positive extremes, as we expected. There was nothing negative about this chart read. All that's positive with the expanded ratio histogram staying above. Couldn't get a decline in your your power momentum to save your life there. Even if I look at the up-down power is fine. Doesn't get any better than that kind of setup. Overall, what didn't we go over from a daily standpoint? GS, FS, FAS.
What is it? TCA? TSA?
TNA.
TNA, there we go. I know.
Yeah, I like the triple small caps. GS, nice. Again, they put up the signals to short the setup, but positive extremes does not a short automatically make, particularly when you can see that there is no indication that shorts have any control of the setup. And it just now got to this is like MA, just now getting to that extreme now, but it is gone too far from that standpoint from a GS. So I would be looking for this one to definitely reverse into that setup. So that will not surprise me when that happens, and hopefully it will not surprise you when it happens. I don't have many people liking GS. Maybe I should take GS off too. Then we can have checkpoint and AIG. I just worry that it's going to be too many dot alerts for people to get all of them. But you know what? You can just ignore what you don't want. You can just ignore it. I know it's hard for some people because they want to trade every signal that comes through. Can you blame them? It's easy money. I mean, look at that. All in a row. Down at the bottom, you got your discount. And then boom, it assaults the top. Is that confusing to anyone? No. Gray dot comes in, but it comes in down at the low, so you really don't have a whole lot of maneuver. If you got the pop-up, you can play that one for an extended target, particularly since you had the yellow above. Alright, so this became a nice bonus from that particular setup. And you still have more negativity from checkpoint, so that would be a problem putting that one on there right now, because we may see a little more expressed weakness from checkpoint, but it's getting oversold. So maybe I'll put AIG first, and then we'll wait a day or two before I add checkpoint, because I don't want people to get dot alerts when it's still in a negative setup. Or at least that's why we try to do the reviews, so that you have an idea of which ones are good and which ones are not so good. And AIG, looking much better from AIG standpoint, bullish, just finishing its negative. Oh, it's Chesapeake. You're right. It's. I called it checkpoint instead because I used to trade that so often, but it's Chesapeake, the power people.
Yeah, those are two different things.
It's very different things. Thank you for correcting me.
Okay, you have 1 minute.
All right, I gotta go. Glad we corrected that before. We finished out. So, as always, though, that was good explanation on the pink dot. Please look for that coming in your email, and I'm still going to do a smaller YouTube video that just goes over the setup for that one. And so, everybody, let's look for a nice Friday. What did we get for Apple at the end here? 23, a little bit of a shave off. Not bad. Say goodbye, as always. Take care.